9 experienced hikers, a frozen mountain, a tent slashed from the inside, and bodies found scattered in the snow with injuries so severe a medical examiner said they looked like victims of a car crash. What really happened on that mountain in 1959? February 1959, the height of the Cold War. Deep in the Soviet Union's Ural Mountains, a group of 9 experienced hikers set out on what should have been a challenging but routine winter expedition. Led by 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, the group consisted mostly of students and recent graduates from the Ural Polytechnic Institute. They were skilled, they were prepared, and they never stood a chance. The plan was to reach Otorten Mountain, a journey that would take roughly 3 weeks. But on the night of February 1st, something went catastrophically wrong. When the group failed to return as scheduled, a search and rescue operation was launched. What they found would become one of the most disturbing unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. When rescuers reached the campsite on February 26th, the scene defied logic. The tent had been cut open from the inside, as if the hikers were desperately trying to escape something. But escape what? There were no signs of an attack, no avalanche debris, nothing that would explain why experienced mountaineers would flee into -30-degree temperatures. And here's where it gets stranger. Footprints led away from the tent in an orderly line, suggesting the group left calmly, walking in single file. But they were barely dressed. Some wore only socks, others were half naked. They had abandoned their boots, their warm clothing, everything they needed to survive. The first 2 bodies were found at the edge of the forest, roughly a mile from the tent, near the remains of a small fire. They had died of hypothermia. Over the following months, 7 more bodies were discovered, and the condition of some of these victims would raise questions that remain unanswered to this day. 4 of the hikers found in a ravine months later had sustained injuries that medical examiners struggled to explain. We're talking about massive internal trauma, fractured ribs, crushed chests, and a fractured skull. The medical examiner compared the force required to cause these injuries to a high-speed car crash. But here's the problem. These injuries showed no external wounds, no cuts, no bruises on the skin. The force came from inside, as if they'd been subjected to an intense pressure wave. And yet, despite these catastrophic injuries, these 4 individuals had somehow walked over a mile to reach the ravine where they were found. Medically speaking, that should have been impossible. Then there were the missing body parts. One victim was missing her tongue, eyes, and part of her lips. Another was missing eyes and eyebrows. The official explanation? Scavengers. But the bodies were found under 4 meters of snow, and the tissue damage didn't match typical animal predation. And perhaps most unsettling of all, traces of radiation were detected on several pieces of clothing, significantly above normal background levels. The official investigation offered no explanation for this. For decades, the Soviet government insisted this was a tragic accident, hypothermia, case closed. But when KGB archives were partially declassified in the 1990s, a different picture began to emerge. It turns out this wasn't just a group of students on a hiking trip. At least 3 members of the group had technical backgrounds related to nuclear energy. One of them, Alexander Kolovatov, worked at a secret nuclear research facility known as NII-9, where he specialized in studying how radioactive materials penetrate fabrics and measuring contamination. This wasn't mentioned in the original investigation. Then there's Semyon Zolotaryov, a World War II veteran who joined the group at the last minute. At 37, he was significantly older than the students and claimed his name was Sasha. When his body was found, he was wearing a camera around his neck. But here's the strange part. It wasn't his personal camera, and authorities claimed the film couldn't be developed due to water damage, which is physically impossible for a camera frozen at -30 degrees Celsius. In 1990, the lead investigator of the original case, Lev Ivanov, gave an interview that changed everything. He admitted that crucial evidence had been suppressed. Witnesses had reported seeing bright orange spheres in the sky that night. Unidentified metal fragments found at the site, described as lightweight but extremely hard aerospace-grade alloys, were removed from the official file, and Ivanov himself believed the group had encountered something connected to secret military testing in the area. So what really happened on that mountain? Over the decades, theories have ranged from the scientific to the speculative. The official modern explanation, released in 2019, claims it was a rare avalanche, but this theory has significant problems. The slope wasn't steep enough for a natural avalanche, the poles were still standing, and avalanche victims don't walk a mile in orderly footprints while suffering massive internal injuries. Some researchers believe the answer lies in secret military testing. The Soviet Union was conducting missile and weapons experiments in the Urals during this period. A missile malfunction could explain the radiation, the pressure wave injuries, and the orange lights in the sky. It could also explain why certain group members with technical backgrounds were really there, not as hikers but civilian-disguised observers. If a test went catastrophically wrong, releasing toxic rocket fuel vapors or causing an oxygen-depleting explosion, it would explain why the hikers fled the tent in panic, slashing it from the inside in their desperation to breathe. It would explain the chemical burns, and it would explain why evidence was suppressed and witnesses silenced. More than 65 years later, the Dyatlov Pass Incident remains one of history's most compelling mysteries. 9 people went into the mountains. None came back alive. The evidence suggests something far more complex than a simple hiking accident, but the full truth may be buried with the Soviet Union itself. Were they victims of a military experiment gone wrong? Were they in the wrong place at the wrong time? Or was there something else on that mountain that night, something we still don't fully understand? What we do know is this: the official explanations don't match the evidence, the injuries don't match the theories, and the questions refuse to go away. If you found this case as fascinating as I did, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. I dive deep into history's darkest mysteries, uncovering the stories that refuse to stay buried. Drop a comment below with your theory about what really happened on Dyatlov Pass. And if you want to explore more cases like this, check out the playlist on screen now. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and remember, sometimes the truth is stranger than any fiction.